Hello, good afternoon. My name is Valerie Adams, and welcome to Kingdom Culture TV and the Writers Forum. And today we have the wonderful, wonderful guest who's an author, an advocate for fatherhood, advocate for adoption and families. I want to welcome today Vincent Ellis White to our platform. Good afternoon, Vincent. How are you?
Good afternoon, Miss Valerie. Thank you so much for having me. I
Oh,
appreciate
you
it.
want to call me Miss Valerie? Okay, I got it.
What you want me to call you? What you want me to
Oh,
call you?
that's fine. But welcome to the Writers Forum, Kingdom Culture. And we've been trying to make this happen for a minute, and things are happening
Right.
in community and COVID and just different things. But I'm glad that you're here today. And
Thank you.
just want to get a little bit about who you are and what you do. And I know you're doing a great work there in Richmond, Virginia. You're working with the advocacy for fatherhood and adoption for families. And I ran across this book, Finding My Father, Chris, right?
Finding Chris, my father. Yep.
Finding Chris, My Father. And it talks about how your real life story about how you found your father and how you made that connection. You want to talk a little bit about your book?
Sure. You want me to go through the whole story, or you just want just a portion of it? What you want?
Whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. Well, I'll try to summarize it, which is it's hard to summarize. I'll try to do so. The book is a memoir about me growing up and being raised here in Richmond, Virginia, dealing with things that a lot of us here in the city as well as around the world face, which is uh, parental absenteeism, lack of father's presence, father wounds, things like that, and confusion in regards to family secrets and things like that. And so it's kind of me giving a personal account of that. And so it's starts here in Southside Richmond, where I was born and raised, and I was raised in a single parent, single mother home. And the person that I knew as my father was what they call a habitual offender, which is a person that goes in and out of jail, continues to offend and goes in and out of jail. And so he was in and out of jail during my upbringing. And I didn't know at the time when I was a child that he was going to jail. My mom, like a lot of mothers, tried to shield me from that. And so she told me that he was in school. And so she would take me to visit him, and I would sit in front of him at a picnic table. So I didn't see like the jail bars and things like that. I was able to reach out and touch my dad. I could talk to him, laugh and joke with him. I thought he was in school because my mom said he was in school, and so
Mm,
that's kind of how that went. So it's also, my story is also a tale of you learning that your parents are human, and so and my mom held the fort down at home, along with like my support systems were my grandmother and my aunt, and my grandfather until he passed. And so as I went through school, after a while, I realized that I realized late, but I realized that my dad was not in school. He was incarcerated. And so I was dealing with the all the different emotions that came with having an incarcerated father, from embarrassment to, confusion, because nobody ever really told me why he was incarcerated. I would ask my mom and she would say he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, which doesn't tell
mm,
you anything.
right.
She always tried to protect him. So she didn't badmouth him at all. She tried to protect him. But looking back, and now as an adult and as a social worker, I wish that she would have been more honest with me, as well as I think going forward in this day and age, I think the parents need to just be more honest with kids now than at that time. And so I learned he was not the father that I, thought he was. And so I had issues with him, from confusion to abandonment to embarrassment. I was embarrassed that my father was incarcerated and he wasn't home that often. And so I watched my mom struggle with one income and trying to make ends meet. And I had a really great childhood. Um, they might have even tried to overcompensate for the fact that, the person that I knew as my father was incarcerated. But at the age of 16, 11th grade, my mom sat me down one day after school, and she said, basically in a nutshell, she said, "Hey, I just want to let you know." She didn't say it this nonchalantly, but she said, "I want to let you know that your father that you know as your father is not your biological father." And that was the first time I ever heard that. And he was the only father that I knew. And so my mind couldn't even fathom him not being my father, because even though I had those feelings about him, I also loved him very much, cared for him
Mhm.
very much, was close to him, along with those negative feelings that I had. And
Right.
so I was really confused at how. And I was 16, so I don't think I was
Mm.
like heavily involved in like sex and stuff like that. So I just didn't even know how, I was like, huh? And so she didn't give me much explanation, because she more so was concerned with how I felt about the initial shocking news. And all she told me was that your father's name is Chris Anderson. And she didn't tell me much about anything. This is before like Google and even the internet era. And so I couldn't like go put in his name like people can do now. I didn't have no way of finding him. I didn't know any siblings or anything. And so that threw me off in 11th grade. It strained me and my mother's relationship for a long time. We live in the same house. I lost trust in her, and in the person I knew as my father, his whole side of the family. I didn't trust them immediately, because I felt like I was the butt of like some big joke that everybody knew except for me. And so that told me that he was not my blood. And so my 16-year-old mind said, if you're not my blood, you're not my family. I don't think of things like that now, but then I thought that way. So I kind of abandoned the whole side of the his whole side of the family. And I only kind of dealt with my mom's side of the family, because I knew they were my blood, because my mom had me. So I was like, that made sense to me at the time.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, so I started getting into trouble in school, fights, stealing, being manipulative, even some womanizing, like a lot of stuff just started happening right after that, to which at that time it just looked like regular behaviors. But again, my social worker mind, I realized it was a trauma, situation. But I didn't know what it was at the time, and nobody discussed mental health back in 96. And so
Right.
that affected me, in my mental health and my psyche. But I just started, misbehaving. And to fast forward from 16, I graduate high school, I go into Norfolk State, I go to undergrad, I go to graduate school. I still don't know who my father is besides the name Chris Anderson. Have not met him, have not seen him. I couldn't find him. I don't have any clues or anything. And
Mhm.
so on the surface, everything looks great. Like I am looking good on the surface. I get my degrees, undergrad and graduate. I'm having, relationships. I'm like popular, I have friends, the whole nine. But there's a wound there. And whenever somebody would ask about my father or talk about fathers, that was my trigger point. I would snap or get in an argument or something like that. And so I don't know if you want me to tell the whole story, but I ended up finding him at the age of 27. Do you want me to tell the whole story?
Oh, you did find him at the age of 27. Yes, let's talk about that, because I know this is Black History Month, and I think it's so important that the male figure and the father figures are, handling their responsibility and their role in the household. And I know that you're a single father,
Right.
and you work in the social work environment to bring families together. Tell us
Correct.
how this affected your career or the things that you do now, for the culture.
Yeah, great question. So I never wanted to go into this professional trajectory or this path at all. My thought process in undergrad was get my mass comm degree and go work in New York in like film and video. And so that's what I was on a one track, career path to do so. But what do they say? Like, share your plans with God if you want to make him laugh. Like, I think that's what happened, because
Yeah.
everything that I tried to do geared me towards helping children, child welfare in some way, shape, or form. And so I started, even if I worked in like media, I would mentor kids. If I worked in an elementary school as a one-on-one counselor, I would mentor kids. And so I kept doing side jobs where I was helping children and child welfare. And so as I got older, I just ended up going into social work. Even when I tried to get away from the position, I went into social work. And so I think it was divinely led, due to everything I went through, not just in my upbringing with my father, but also I became a father at the age of 25. And by 27, I was dealing with custody battles. And so
Mm.
um, there's the whole continuum from me being a child dealing with it to now being the father dealing with it, not wanting my son to go through the same things that I went through. And so I made a vow to myself, even at an early age of 25, that I was not going to have that happen no matter what. And so I had to step up to the plate, and that's what I did. So I was dealing with it in my personal life as far as custody battles and trying to be present and relevant in my son's life. And also dealing with it professionally, because I was just entering into my social work field and working for Department of Social Services, working for child support, working for, benefits and SNAP and TANF and Medicaid, working as a
Hmm.
mentor, and all the different elements, working at group homes, to now working in foster care. I continue to work in child welfare, and I became a fatherhood advocate because I was dealing with it directly, as well as still getting over the trauma from my 27 years of not having my biological father present in my life. And what was my saving grace was not just my faith and maturity as I aged, but also I was fortunate to find my dad and be able to connect with him. But there's a million people out here that don't connect with their fathers, or when they meet their fathers, they don't live up to their expectations, and therefore it causes like more trauma. And so just being able to kind of speak to it personally in two different ways, as the child and the adult, as well as speak to it professionally, and being able to help families become healthy families, or help blended families, or help fathers that need advocacy, because we're always some steps behind when it comes to advocacy for fathers, whether it's in the courtroom or in the media or anywhere. So I always use my voice to just be able to advocate for fathers as best as I can.
That's good. You said something. You said that there was a wound there.
Yes.
Even though you're bridging the gaps for families, and you're in your son's life, and you're mentoring, do you feel like you've healed from that place of
Yes, I
not?
do.
Okay.
Yes, I do. If you had asked me that before I met my dad, if I said yes, it would have been a lie. But once I found my father at 27, I had also matured then. So like I came to the conclusion that I wasn't gonna find him. And I was still hurting. And so once I found him, along with my faith and maturity, and was able to talk to him, hear from him and meet him, and just kind of clear up some of the confusion I was dealing with, and the different things I was dealing with. I was able to heal. I was able to form a relationship with him. I was able to speak to what happened, and I was a mass comm major, and so I knew how to speak to people, speak to crowds, and be a public person, and be vocal. And so now I can, and I'm transparent. I'm not a person like they try to stereotype men that like men can't tap into their emotions or can't, speak to this and that, but that's not me. And so
Mhm.
I was able to be vocal about my journey, which helped like thousands of people. So yeah, I was
What
healed.
good, good. So you got your healing, and you said mass communications major.
Correct.
Okay. Um, wow. What would you say to anyone that's struggling with their relationship, or not being able to maybe find their father, or have that missing element? What would you say to the young men that may be listening to this at a later time? What would you say to them that could encourage them to maybe bridge that gap?
I would say that I encourage every person to try to seek out and find their parent. They will give you plenty of reasons why they don't think it's a good idea, because I used to do the same thing. But I tell them, and I talk to a lot of young men that I encourage to find their father, seek out their father, especially in this day and age when there's so many ways to do so. I didn't have any of these ways to do so, and so I encourage that because it's going to clear up a lot of things for you, and it doesn't mean it's going to be all positive. It's just the fact of me having confusion in my head, certain feelings, but only having heard one side. And so that's
Mm,
key. And so a lot of
mm.
these people that say they don't want to meet their father, they don't care for them, or they can do fine without them, they've only heard one side. And so it's always good to hear all sides of a scenario anyway. And
Wow.
also, again, clearing up confusion. I learned so much about my health in meeting my dad. I learned so much about his variation of the story. I learned so much about who I am from interacting with him. And then also meeting, his siblings and his family members my paternal side. And so just even being able to learn more about me. And the last thing I'll say is, they always say forgiveness is about you. It's not about the other person. And so that kind of goes for me too. I would encourage somebody that may not want to meet their father because they have certain hurts or harboring some type of feelings. I would say forgiveness, if there needs to be forgiveness, because that may not be the case. But if
Right.
there needs to be forgiveness, forgiveness is about you. It's not about that individual. So it's not about your father. Forgiveness is for you to be able to go forward and be the best variation of you that you can be.
Wow, that's good. I like the fact that you wasn't even trying to do it, but God used you in a way to bring it all full circle, with families. And how important is it to have mentors and male role models for young men?
I think it's extremely important. I used to tell my story. I used to say I was just raised by 3 single Black women, which I was, but I think I was overlooking the other people, the other natural supports that were in my village, in my circle. And so when I think back, there was a lot more people, but they just weren't as prominent as my mom, my grandmother, and my aunt, who were my 3 strong Black women that raised me. But looking back, my mom put me in the Boys and Girls Club. And I was there for many, many years. And I had a lot of strong Black male supports there. I had my grandfather up until 1993, who was a strong Black supportive figure in my life. It's just that he was a little bit older. But looking back, he was like a really prominent community figure. He was an entrepreneur. He commanded respect in my neighborhood. And so these are things that I try to have as well, in my current life, and to show my son as well. So I had him. I went to camps, every year. I had like my uncle from North Carolina that spent time with me. So all those people that were natural supports were part of my village that kind of helped me, whether it was directly or indirectly. But I think they kept me on the straight and narrow, or if I did lean a little bit to the left, they didn't allow me to lean too far. And so as a social worker now, I see a lot of children that get abandoned, obviously, me working in foster care. And so they don't have a village, they don't have a support. And it's led a lot of them to get like mental health issues, and it's led a lot of them to feel like they need to, commit suicide and things like that. And I think that if they had more support in their corner, it might be a buffer in a sense to be able to assist them and give them more direction in life.
Wow, wow. That's great. That's great. Let's talk about the mental health piece. Um, I know that you work for, you're an advocate for families, fathers. You work with social work, with adoption agency, connecting families and bringing families together. How important is it for, I don't know the layout for what you do, but how important is protecting the mental well-being or the mental health of children in those adoption agencies?
It's very important. I actually teach a monthly class on grief and loss. I teach it
Mm,
every month to our prospective foster parents, and we usually average around 15 to 25 prospective foster parents that some of them may not have ever had a class on mental health or ever had to learn about grief and loss or trauma, or may have never known the importance of looking at things from a trauma-informed lens or a grief and loss lens. And so
mm,
that is what I teach every month. And so that's very important, because what we want them to understand is children that are coming into foster care are traumatized. There's no might, there's no may have, they are. That is a fact. And so if you are not able to recognize that their mental health has been affected, when they show you symptoms or examples via their behavior, you're going to respond to the behavior instead of trying to figure out the why. Why are they acting this way? Why are they doing X, Y, Z? And so it better equips you in a sense that if you are able to look at it from a different lens and not your normal lens of responding to a behavior, but a different lens, and say, okay, well, why is this happening? Are they grieving? Are they going through some grieving steps? Are they traumatized? And is this a side effect of their traumatization? And so being able to kind of get educated on how trauma affects your mental health and how grief and loss affects your mental health is key to their success in your home and key to you being a successful foster parent or natural support or whatever your role is in a child's life. Being able to understand their history and their social history and their background is very important to making sure that their mental health remains intact, because their kids are resilient, so they can bounce back, but they have to be supported.
Right, right. I was gonna ask you, I know that you're a single father and you're raising your son. And I know that this can be maybe a challenge sometimes, but when there's no relationship with the real parents, it can be different. With your situation and not just to understand how you manage as a single father and that missing parent, how do you manage with that as a single father?
Yeah, well, to be clear, that my son's mom is not missing. She's just not. I guess the court just found her not fit to be able to take care of him, take
But
care of
she's
his
still
best.
in his life. She's still in his
Yes,
life. Okay,
yes,
okay, good.
never left his life. So,
Okay,
the courts just found her to not be the best fit to take care of his best interests. And so, when you go to custody hearings, the courts have 10 points that they look at in regards to determining a child's best interests. And so, and they're public things you can look up on your own. And so, they determine the child's best interest. And so, they just deemed it fit that they deemed me the more fit parent, and this is multiple judges, deemed me the more fit parent. And so I try to just advocate for him as best as I can, try to take care of his needs as best as I can. And I always tell people, just look at the fruits, look at if you're a parent or whatever you do, the proof is going to be in the fruit. So how's your child come out? How is your child doing? If you're working and you say you're doing well, look at the fruits. Are you producing good work, or are you in trouble? Are you behind? Just look at the
right.
fruits. And so my son's doing well, health wise. He's doing well in grades. He plays on the wrestling team. He's very smart, witty, well ahead of his time, way smarter than I was, at his age of 15. And so I think everything is going fine. They could always be
Good.
better, but I think they're going fine. And like I said, he does have both parents. It's just that
Yes.
again,
Right.
I think that he's in better hands with me, and not just me, but the other professionals believe so as
Good.
well.
Well, I just commend you on being an advocate for family and being a stand and for the great work that you're doing there in Richmond, Virginia, connecting families and making transformation, transforming the culture. Um, one last question as we go. What would you encourage young men and young fathers? I say young because a lot of times they're thrown into roles of responsibility. And given the culture, what would you encourage them, or how would you encourage them, your lasting followers here?
How would I encourage just young fathers in general, you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Just young
Um,
fathers
I,
in general.
yeah, no, I would encourage young fathers to be consistent in their children's lives. That's probably the biggest thing you can do, is be consistent and be present. And so that will trump any gift you give them. Anything else you give them is your consistency, you're being present, you're being trustworthy, and you're providing a safe space for them. Those four things, I think if you do that, you'll be all right, as a father and as a parent. It doesn't mean you're not gonna make mistakes, but if you're consistent, trustworthy, and you provide a safe space and you're present in their life, I think you'll be fine. I think they will. If they don't see it now, they definitely see it in the future when they grow older.
Great, great, great. Now, Vincent, tell us where we can find your book, and if someone is actually looking for families in the Richmond area, where they can find information about the agency there.
Yeah, so on social media, I use my same name all across the board. So It's at Vincent Ellis White. My whole name, Vincent Ellis White. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. You can just look up that name. If you want to Google me, you can put in Vincent Ellis White as well. And as far as families, there's plenty of places you can go to for the state of Virginia. You can go to any DSS locality, and you'll find information on the children's state of Virginia. Virginia has a overarching family website as well. Or if you want to go to my specific company, you can look up Extra Special Parents. And Extra Special Parents is a treatment foster care agency. And so you can look up Extra Special Parents and learn about the different things that we offer there, different trainings that we have coming up.
Good, good, good. I think it's so important that we keep the community aware, because even during this COVID pandemic, a lot of kids have been lost parents, or just kind of dealing with loss, or you just may need some type of, even families may need to know how to handle kids that they're adopting. So I think
Yes.
it's important that you are doing the teaching and training the parents how to handle the trauma that the child may have gone through. So that's great. Great,
Thank
great.
you so much.
Thank you so much for stopping by Kingdom Culture and Writers Forum and sharing your wisdom, sharing your work. And I really appreciate you. If you have any questions, you can hit them up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and just reach out to him with your questions, or know of some families that may need the service or that's looking to adopt. Definitely check that out in the Richmond area. Thank you
And
again.
thank
My
you for
name is.
having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. My heart was like I'm working on a project with a company regarding bridging families together in the community and how to help the elderly and children. So I just thought when you started talking about your advocacy work, it's so important to keep families, at the forefront. We can have businesses, we can have cars, we can have houses, but our family and our life, our lifeline is really the culture and the families that we are in. So I think it's very important that we keep bridging the gap with families and bringing families together. So
Agreed.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you for dropping by Kingdom Culture Writers Forum, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
All right. Have a nice day.